Hey everybody, it's your friend and your guy and your favorite creator who only ever posts content that you actually want to see, Gardiner. Spiffing Brit has done it again. So I wanted to talk about a couple different things that have been going on in the browser space, because as probably everybody who watches this channel knows, I am a web developer. I'm very interested in web technologies and web browsers specifically. And so I wanted to talk about a couple of things that Google and Mozilla have done that have kind of raised a few eyebrows in the web world. Let's talk about it. First up, we're going to talk about Google and Chromium. If you're not aware, Google Chrome is actually built on top of a supposedly free and open source web browser called Chromium. Chromium is licensed under a combination of licenses, but mostly the MIT and the BSD licenses. Now, in my opinion, those licenses are open source, but they're not necessarily free software, since they don't guarantee the end user's rights to actually see the code that has been modified. If you, as an end user, are running MIT licensed code, the developer who made that code doesn't have to provide you with the source code or any modifications that they made to it. Therefore, it doesn't protect your rights as an end user. With that little diatribe out of the way, the fact is, Google is closing down some of the proprietary Google APIs, and Chromium is not going to be allowed to access them anymore. What does that mean for end users? It's pretty simple. Chromium browser is no longer going to be able to sync your passwords, your bookmarks, or any other details that are available in Chrome Sync to Chromium. Many distros are struggling with this decision. Many of them are actually considering not even supporting Chromium in their repositories anymore, because Google is intentionally crippling their BSD licensed software that honestly is looking more and more proprietary and less free and open source every single day. It's just one more reason to never trust Google. I mean, Google is becoming to the 2020s what Microsoft was to the tech world in the 90s. I mean, embrace, extend, extinguish. It looks like that's Google's entire motivation with the web. And if we don't act, I think they'll be way more successful at it than Microsoft ever was. Now, in other browser news, I'm actually very disappointed in Firefox for the decision that just came down. You might be wondering, what am I talking about? And the answer is PWAs, or progressive web apps. Mozilla calls it single-site browser, but the fact of the matter is Mozilla is canceling PWA support on desktop Firefox. I don't know what else to say except that this is categorically the wrong decision. This is a feature that is supported in literally every browser that I can think of. If it's Chromium, if it's WebKit based, every single browser supports installing web apps, except for Firefox. And I think that this is really a slap in the face to web standards. If you don't know what PWAs are, they're basically a collection of features that allow you to install a website as an application on your system. It doesn't matter if it's a PC or a mobile device. And this is incredibly important for the web, especially for the future of the web. The way PWAs work is really interesting, actually. They are, like I said, they're a collection of multiple different technologies in the browser, from service workers to CSS queries, JavaScript APIs, client notifications, and a few other things that come together, that coalesce into what is called PWAs. But the biggest thing that a web browser needs to do in order to support PWAs is, number one, be able to add a website's logo or icon to your system, to the list of installed applications on your system, be able to launch a standalone, usually sandboxed version of the web browser that is, depending on the PWA settings, is able to hide the browser's Chrome. And number three, cache assets for offline functionality of the app. Now, there are a few other small requirements, right? But Firefox already supports just about every single one of these features, except for the three that I mentioned, right? You can already hide Firefox's Chrome. You can already sandbox pages from each other. You can already cache assets for offline functionality. You can even go into Firefox's obscure settings and enable PWA support that already exists, albeit in an unfinished and buggy form. But they unilaterally decided that they're going to remove the functionality that already exists, even if it's incomplete, even though it's their job to support web standards like every single other web browser out there. As a web developer, I have made several PWAs. One of them was for a client to manage their retail inventory, and the other is for my website, hellostory.org, which is a website that archives antique public domain children's books. It's pretty cool. Check it out. There's a link below. Now, granted, installing these applications on your desktop basically just looks like the website, but that's really not the point. Fact is, I could, if I wanted to, write special CSS to change how it looks if it's installed versus how it looks when it's being run in a browser. And I was very excited for the day when Firefox would support PWAs natively on Linux. Not just because I love PWAs and I love Firefox as my main browser, but because Firefox runs super well on the Librem 5. And with the browser that comes with the Librem 5, Epiphany, you can actually install websites as PWAs. It's just native functionality in this WebKit-based browser. You can also do so with Chromium. And even on Edge on Linux, which reportedly has the best implementation of PWAs, you can install websites as applications. And who would have thunk it, but you can even install websites as applications on an iPhone through Safari. But you can't through Firefox on a desktop. And that's insane to me. Firefox doesn't want to embrace what I believe to be a critical feature for the web going forward, especially with the advent of WebAssembly. Installing apps as PWAs on your desktop is going to be a critical feature. David Townsend of Mozilla said, quote, "The single site browser feature, which is their term for a PWA, has only ever been available through a hidden preference and has multiple known bugs. Additionally, user research found little to no perceived user benefit to the feature, and so there is no intent to continue development on it at this time. As the feature is costing us time in terms of bug triage and keeping it around is sending the wrong signal that this is a supported feature, we're going to remove the feature from Firefox." So because of their user research, which, by the way, they not only didn't cite, David Townsend actually referred to it as confidential later on in this thread. Mozilla says there's, quote, "little to no perceived user benefit." So they're removing the feature of PWAs from Firefox. Frankly, PWAs are a web standard, and it's up to websites to actually prove the benefit of PWAs. It's Mozilla's job to support web standards, and if some vendors aren't supporting the standard, then there can't be a uniform push for PWAs across the web. Furthermore, when Townsend said, quote, "keeping it around is sending the wrong signal that this is a supported feature," it's kind of crazy to me because the "it" that he is referring to is the unfinished and little known single site browser feature that has to be enabled through Firefox's About Config section. And here's the thing, it's not just me who's upset about this news. Mazat on the forum said, quote, "PWAs come in other browsers, but Firefox is missing features. So instead of polishing it a bit, you're removing it completely. How about sending the right signal and put in a couple hours of work and a couple days of testing?" Claudio Cocciarelli said, "I don't know about this user research, but if I can give my humble opinion as a user, this feature is far from no perceived user benefit." And then Joshua said, "You should reconsider this decision. It is understandable that currently there might not be enough resources to finish full PWA support like in competing browsers, but removing it completely will not only make all work done on it a waste of time, but will also send the wrong signal." And there are many, many other commenters on this thread and in the wider reporting on this that has said that this is the wrong decision. And I can understand that, during a pandemic, resources might be strapped. But I believe that removing this feature and not pledging to complete it in a timely manner is regressive for web standards as a whole. I'd love to know what you think. Let me know down in the comments. Are you as passionate about PWAs as I am? Probably not. I'm like the only person who cares. But let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about this. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate you guys being here. I want to give a special shout out to my patrons over on Patreon. Without them, I would not be able to do this. So thank you guys. It means the world to me. That's going to do it for now. Leave a comment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a blessed day.